I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Homewood School District 153 for March 11th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Mr. Booth?
Here.
Mrs. Marks?
Here.
Mrs. Bethay?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Zimmerman? Mrs. Hackworth?
Here.
Mr. Bosch?
Here.
5 present.
We have approval of minutes from the regular meeting of the Board of Education from February 12th, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections to that set of minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have future dates.
Yes, just a reminder for everybody, 1 week from tomorrow is an e-learning day. That is done out of necessity. We are a polling place for Cook County Board of Elections, and so in order to ensure maximum safety, we decided to have an e-learning that day rather than have voters come into our open school buildings with kids here. So again, e-learning day on Tuesday, March 19th, and then our spring break is March 25th through the 29th, the last week of March. And our students will return on, I believe it's April 1st, but let me confirm that. Yes, students return on Monday, April 1st. And then one other date I'd mentioned, which is our kindergarten orientation. So we're gearing up for school next year. If you have an incoming kindergarten student, that orientation is on Thursday, April 4th at 6:30 at Willow School. And we'll be advertising that in a lot of different media. But one of the challenges, of course, is trying to get the word out to families, many of whom are not yet enrolled in your district. So we're trying to publicize that as much as possible. Thursday, April 4th, 6:30 at Willow School is kindergarten orientation. And then just general registration for next year will be later in April, and we'll be publicizing that as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And are there any presentations tonight?
There are none.
Anyone in the audience here to address any items that are not on tonight's agenda? Are there any responses to questions raised at previous meetings?
There are none.
We have do any board members have any reports from any committees or meetings you have attended?
Yes, Educational Progress met, and we talked about several things. First, we talked about our pre-K program at Willow. Our pre-K program is very popular, and we have more students than we do space, so we're talking about possible expansion of that. So we're kind of throwing around some ideas to figure out how we can expand the pre-K program. The second thing we talked about is exploring our ELA curriculum. We're going to be discussing that more, and we'll have a more detailed update at our next April meeting. And then also our AI that we talked about that will be discussed, and Dr. McAllister will further discuss that later in the meeting.
See, Finance and Property met, I think it was 2 weeks ago, or it was last week, can't keep track of time. We, along with Dr. Trimberger, we talked about preparing for the FY25 budget, in particular the calendar for the budget. We talked about a variety of grants that we have applied for, and some grants that we have received, and then we also talked about a variety of facility issues that we're looking at down the road. Across all of the campuses. And then we also talked about district office raises for FY25, which is also in the agenda for this evening.
Tonight.
I don't know, did you have anything else?
Nope. Great, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Superintendent's report.
Yes, well, I mentioned the early e-learning day 1 week from tomorrow, but the highlight, the big news, of course, is this weekend our entire community is celebrating a state championship for Homewood Flossmoor High School. And granted, that's a different school in a different district, but as you all know, our students feed into the high school. And it was really neat to be able to see a couple of former Panthers, Dominic Pangello and Bryce Hurd, who are a part of that team and contributed. And there may be others, and if I omitted their names, I apologize. But nonetheless, it's a tremendously proud moment, I think, for our community to celebrate that first state championship. So congratulations to them. As far as activities here, spring sports have begun. You were outside today. It was a beautiful day, and I looked out across the field and saw our kids playing soccer, so that was exciting as that season and track season began. And our winter sports, rather, have concluded. And then the other thing that I will point out next month, I will bring to the board for consideration and approval a change to our first day exclusion policy for Willow School. So a couple of years ago, well, first of all, state law requires that students entering kindergarten and sixth grade provide complete health records, including immunizations. And we have always, prior to 2 years ago, we have always been what's called a first day exclusion district, meaning if parents did not have those forms completely filled out and on file, their child could not attend the first day of school. 2 years ago, we changed that, and we actually more closely aligned with the state deadline, which is October 15th, and we set an exclusion date of October 1st. And districts are allowed to set their own date. The state says absolutely nobody after October 15th, but districts are given discretion to make that date earlier. Well, after reviewing this with our Willow administrators, Ms. Lawson, Ms. Wood, and our school nurse, Ms. Soto, we have real concerns with regard to safety when you have, let's say, 150 to 175 kindergartners, many of whom have never been in our schools, and we know nothing about their health history. And it's a really, really bad position to potentially be in if you have a student that might have severe allergies, seizures, et cetera, and we know nothing about it. So my recommendation next month will be we approve for Willow School only and go back to a first day exclusion. So we need to have those health records. And the reason I want to make mention of this today, which is obviously the second week of March, is oftentimes the problem families run into is they go to set up a doctor appointment and they can't get in for 6 to 8 weeks. And so that's where sometimes they run into that opening day deadline. So we are making notice early that that is going back to a first day exclusion, and I strongly encourage families, get those doctor's appointments made now. You know, don't wait until summer to pick up the phone and make that appointment. Make it now so that your child is ready to go in August when we return. And that's it.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have several consent agenda items tonight. We need to authorize the chief school business official to pay the usual and customary bills for April 2024. We have a board policy first reading on artificial intelligence.
Yes, as Ms. Bethay mentioned, Ed Progress, we talked about this. So there's not a day that goes by that I don't open up my daily publication, Education Week, and read at least one article that deals with artificial intelligence and the growing influence that it's having, not only in our lives, but obviously within the educational realm also. And so one of the concerns that I have is that because it's growing in popularity so fast, that its use is going to be in front of policy that we've established. And so what I've provided for you, I sat down with Beth White, our Director of Technology, who's seated here today, along with James Cassidy, who's our Director of Administrative Technology for classroom use. And we reviewed some policies that exist in other districts throughout the country, and we've crafted for you a proposed policy on artificial intelligence, which largely is catered towards student and staff use to try to provide some guidelines and parameters for how we can use this moving forward. I think all of us agree that it's going to be, well, it is, and going to become an increasingly important part of how we go about doing business and can be a tremendous time saver. The big caveat, of course, is you put an asterisk and say, you still have to have humans involved in this process. But if you can have artificial intelligence create documents and potentially save 3/4 of the time in doing so, and then we put our eyes and minds on it to tweak it as needed, I think that that's a wise thing to do. So for your review in April, we'll actually ask for your formal approval on this, but this is just an introduction to that policy.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions on that first reading?
No.
All righty. We have a personnel report.
Yes, well, this is always a sad time. It's an exciting time, but it's a sad time. Last month, I talked about a few of our individuals who had put in for retirement, and you can see now the list is much longer. And the reason for that is we have a March 1st deadline per our contract for employees to state their intent to retire in future years. So you can see a list of, I believe it's 8 additional names of staff members who have put in officially for retirement. And I'd just like to recognize them because combined, you have decades and decades of experience in education, as well as specifically to District 153. So putting in for retirement, Dee McManamy, an assistant at Churchill, set to retire this year. We'll really be sad to see Dee leave here in just a few months. And then further down the road, but nonetheless, something that I'd like to mention, seated in the back, Kevin Keene, our Director of Buildings and Grounds. He does a fabulous job maintaining facilities that are aging. So we have Kevin for 3 more years. Wendy Milnes, in-school suspension supervisor at James Hart, 3 more years. Denise Mastella, PE teacher at Willow for more than 3 decades. She has 4 more years. Vicki Nieto, a 5th grade teacher at Churchill, 4 more years. Karen Kokesh, a reading specialist at Willow, 4 more years. Natalie Mingo, another individual with 3 decades plus experience in our district, reading teacher at Willow, 4 more years. And finally, Paul Klimchek, who is currently the Assistant Director of Buildings and Grounds. Paul has also put in his intent to retire, but we were able to convince Paul that once Kevin steps aside, that we'll have Paul to be able to move into that role for 2 years before he retires. So Paul is not going to retire until 2029, but it does provide nice continuity in our Buildings and Grounds department that we have Kevin 3 more years and then Paul 2 beyond that. So congratulations. I say it's a bit melancholy. Thoroughly happy for all these people, right? Anytime you've committed a career to education and influenced thousands of lives, it's really, really impressive. But replacing these people will be super difficult. And I also want to mention specifically on the report, Elisa Williamson. Congratulations to her. Elisa has served as our Dean of Students at Churchill School for 4 years, and prior to that she was a teacher. And with Mary Kay Gardner's retirement as the Assistant Principal at Churchill, we're pleased to announce that Elisa will be moving into that role. So congratulations to Elisa. And just today, we posted her position, which is Dean of Students at Churchill. So we'll be looking to fill that position for next year. And then you see a variety of other items in the personnel report, but I wanted to make special mention of those.
Thank you. And Kevin, I would like to vote no to this, but it won't make a difference. I know you're going to retire anyway. But we really appreciate all you've done to keep our buildings safe and clean, especially given the age of the buildings. Yes. So we're glad you're going to be around for a bit longer. Okay, any questions on the personnel report? We have approval of additional compensation for coaches.
Yes, so our contract has stipends for all of our coaches, those individuals who stay after school for clubs or sports, and/or sports. And those stipend amounts were based on, basically you look at the total amount of time a coach puts in, the athletes with whom they work, number of responsibilities, kids, time, et cetera. And you come up with a stipend amount, and the board approves those each year, and those are part of our contract. The last 2 years specifically, we've had a problem that didn't exist, certainly when those stipend amounts were created. And that is because of the bus driver shortage, which is still as pervasive as it's been. Our coaches are, what used to be a 3:30 start time for a game and usually would end by 6 o'clock is easily 7:30 to 8 o'clock now for every game. The buses are at least an hour late just because we don't have drivers. And so I think it's the right thing to do to show appreciation to our coaches that they have invested in and are giving up time with their own families to spend time with our students because they love it and because they want to do that, but also that we do right by them by showing we realize that your time essentially has increased about 20%. So what you see here in the spreadsheet is basically taking the amount of time that they're spending for each of the contests that buses are late and giving them a small dollar amount. And so the total compensation for all of our coaches district-wide is just under $7,000 of additional compensation. But again, I think that that is something that's merited, given the sacrifice that they've all incurred.
Great. Any questions?
No.
All right, we also have approval of agreement with ISC4 and RISE.
Yes, Intermediate Service Center 4 in Chicago Heights hosts a regional safe school called RISE. And in order for districts to place students at those schools, there needs to be an agreement in place. And so the agreements that you see here do not require us to place students, but we cannot place them if we don't have this agreement in place. So I'm asking for your approval to move forward with signing those, so we have that in place for next school year.
Any questions on that? All righty, we need to approve the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda, excuse me, items as presented in item 7A, 7B, 7C, 7D, and 7E.
Second.
Any questions before we vote from the board or the audience? Is there a roll call, please?
Mr. Bosch?
Yes.
Mrs. Buffet?
Yes.
Mrs. Havikhorst?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mrs. Marks?
Yes. Motion carries. We have two action agenda items. The first is the second payment of February 2024 bills and the first payment of March 2024 bills. Are there any questions on the bills?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
Moved upon the recommendation of the chief school business official that the Board of Education authorize the second payment of February 2024 bills and the first payment of March 2024 bills in an amount not to exceed $2,575,132.49.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Buffet?
Yes.
Mrs. Havikhorst?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Bosch?
Yes.
Mrs. Marks?
Yes. Motion carries. We have employment.
Yes, 4 individuals on the employment report, what I would call the unsung heroes of our district, right? Those people serving in food service positions and supervisor positions, and in one case, a new secretary at Churchill that we're really excited about. But these individuals, our district couldn't function if we didn't have people watching our kiddos at lunch and at recess, and certainly serving food to them. So we welcome to District 153 Maureen Malloy, food service floater, Sandra Brown, a supervisor at Churchill, Mercedes Zavala, our new 12-month secretary at Churchill, and Stephen Kim, a supervisor at Willow.
Any questions?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
Moved upon the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education approve the employment of Maureen Malloy effective February 25th, 2024, and Sandra Brown and Mercedes Zavala effective February 26th, 2024, and Stephen Kim effective March 11th, 2024, upon the terms recommended by the superintendent, conditioned only upon receipt of a satisfactory criminal background report and upon receipt no later than March 15, 2024, of evidence of proper legal qualifications for the position to be filled.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Havikhorst?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Bosch?
Yes.
Mrs. Buffet?
Yes.
Mrs. Marks?
Yes. Motion carries. Any discussion items tonight?
No.
Any written communication to the board? No, ma'am. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming tonight.